to sub-Saharan Africa and hunt the the Khoisan people because they didn't think they were really people, but they look just like humans. Like I don't
Well,
know
yeah,
what.
there was the same thing, but you have to understand in that time, the Europeans, they were so primitive because remember how we got to the terms of barbarians. I mean, a lot of people think that the term just came from the barbarous people, but they would give that term to people that they didn't deem people. And did you ever hear the story of how France first encountered monkeys?
No.
So there was a tribe, not a tribe, a French people. They went over to Africa, or was it over to the Americas? I can't remember which one. And a monkey got on board the ship, and they were coming back over to France, and everybody on the ship caught scurvy, and they all died. So when the ship finally made its way to France and everybody died, the only one that was still alive was the monkey. So they thought the monkey was a human, and they put him on trial in France and sentenced the monkey to death by decapitation, and had a whole court proceeding for this monkey, and they couldn't get anything out of him because it was a monkey. They thought it was a human being, and
What
so
the hell? Where
so
the
they
hell
sentenced
am
the
I?
monkey to death.
Dude, that's crazy. They did that monkey wrong. They thought he killed him.
But they all died from scurvy. So
So
monkey didn't get off on any justice. See, even back then, the death penalty still had its problems.
innocent
Innocent
monkeys.
monkey died.
Whatever. There's no such thing as an innocent monkey. Let's be clear.
Yeah, I don't trust
Monkeys
anybody
are.
that can throw poop at you
I just
and
don't.
laugh at it.
I don't like people who say their favorite animal is a monkey. Like, shut up, dude. They're so ugly. I
How
I just
dare you? How dare you talk about our cousins that way?
that's how I feel in my soul. That's my personal, you know,
Now, are you saying that about monkeys or are you saying that about chimps?
both.
Because chimps are
Chimpanzees are
ugly.
super, yeah. Orangutans are ugly. All other primates besides humans are ugly to me, and
Gorillas are pretty cool.
a lot of humans are ugly to me as well. So,
I'll tell you, gorillas are the sexiest non-human primate out there.
I mean, I don't know how you.
They got
I
they
just think
got
they're all equally hideous.
they got so much muscle. I mean, everybody wants that gorilla muscle.
You know
But
what's really ugly?
what?
Baboons.
Oh yeah, but you know what I find to be uglier than baboons? Bonobos. You know,
Yeah.
baboons we call them ugly because of their butt, but the baboon's butt is
Oh, they
it's
have
just a
ugly
naked
faces
butt.
too.
Yeah, well, yeah, that too. The Mandarin has a really ugly face. But then you take a look at the bonobo. The bonobo's butt looks like its rectum is turned inside out.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, and bonobos just ugly creatures.
Bonobos.
And what did they
Trying to
used to
get this
call the
damn thing
bonobo?
right.
Didn't they used to call the bonobo Bill's ape the Billy's ape or something like that?
Bondo ape.
No,
No,
I know I'm talking about the Dalois ape. But that's a whole nother thing. That's a cryptid.
I was gonna say yeah. The Bondo ape is not the same thing. I don't know what you're talking about, but this thing is just you don't hear the right way.
So this is our casual Saturdays. And I think it's gonna be really good. Uh, have I been have I been banned again? I see restrictions on my account. Okay. All right. So it's still the same restrictions from the last one. I thought they might have banned me again because I called somebody a troll. I mean, to be fair, they called me a troll. They said I was trolling them. I said you would know because you are the biggest troll in this group, and so
Well,
they probably
I don't
reported
think
me.
troll is necessarily a It's not like calling somebody stupid, although some trolls are not stupid at all. Some trolls are amazing. Some people are really good at trolling. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
I'd say Donald Trump was one of the best trolls.
Yeah, he was. He's an expert troll.
He trolled the hell out of the
He's the
Democrats
most
by being
successful
like,
troll of all time.
yeah, I would happen to agree with that. He was an excellent troll at trolling the Democrats. They he's still living in their heads. That's how good of a troll he was.
Trolling is a very specific thing. Like trolling is not just making fun of somebody. It's basically tricking somebody into tricking somebody into basically, I don't know how to describe it. It's making somebody react at their own expense to a joke, something like that. Like to react seriously to a performative bit that you're doing. It's not just playing around.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that because you take a look at some of the most. Oh, I mean, what that guy who was trolling AOC talk about how my favorite big booty Latina.
Yeah, he works for that dude. What is his name? Alex something.
Alex
He works for Glenn Beck.
Okay, well, once you finish getting set up, we'll start recording. But we're already streaming because we have to give some bonus content to the viewership, to the base. Always got to get that wonderful bonus content, all the bloopers that you don't get to see, even though I don't edit anything, so everything is bloopers. But I used to spend so much time editing. I don't do it anymore because I'm lazy, and because I think it's better to just have raw content. Make sure that we know what we're talking about, and we have our stuff and our P's and Q's together, and we do it in one take, so we don't have to edit anything. Now, of course, I could go and listen to the entire 2 hours of content to bleep out every curse word that I say, but I'm not going to do that because then I have to listen to it more times than I need to. Because I already listened to the show 3 times. Every recording episode. I gotta get our gotta get our viewership on each platform that I'm able to look at, so that I can make money off my own views. Yeah. So
No money to speak of.
no need for me to listen to myself again.
I wonder if this would be.
You're trying to do it upside down. See, I used to do it upside down too. They used to say, "Oh, you're supposed to do it upside down," but I don't like it upside down. I keep mine pointed at me. Angle this downwards just a little bit. Oh, there. Yeah. Get some of this. Get some of this shirt accent in there. Can't really see much of the shirt, but get some of that. Get some of that shallow missionary Baptist church up in there. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Get some of that shallow social. Wish I could show the bottom of it down there. Get some representation of the Dr. Van A. Bowden, pastor. That shallow missionary action. Yeah. I still got to work on getting a better camera soon.
I'm just not gonna freaking worry about this pop filter right now.
You see, if you want sunglasses, Rhett, this is how you do it. This is how you rock sunglasses.
This thing is just too long. Like,
everybody complain about being too long.
The pop filter arm.
Oh, you should just do what I did. See, I used to have my pop filter all the way down here, right next to the microphone, and I would bend it over. But instead, I put the pop filter on the metal railing now, and I just move it up towards the springs
That's where I
and
always had it.
pull it down that way, or put it on the arm. Well, I don't know how your arm is. I have an arm that bends, so I would put it on the arm over here, the one that's bent, the one that's not bent, the one that's straight, and just kind of move it over, you know, and just kind of hold that right there in place. That way, it doesn't get in the way, because I can easily just move it out of the way. The only thing I don't like about the pop
There we
filter
Here we
is
go.
I didn't realize that I could take it off by twisting it too much, because I would twist it when I'm turning it, and I didn't realize that it twisted off like that. You see that there? See what I'm doing there? I didn't realize that it twisted off right there.
That's what.
So when I was turning it, I didn't realize that would happen if I would just kept on turning it. So every time that I'm adjusting it, it twists and it turns off. So now I don't do that anymore. I barely even use the pop filter. I don't sense much difference in my voice when I'm using it and when I'm not.
Darn it.
Maybe I need to do some more voice training exercises. I don't know.
Okay, we are good.
You are on board. You're ready. Okay, so I'm gonna take my cool sunglasses off, because and I want this in here today. I want some some beautiful scenery here. To mess up a little bird in here today. And what else am I doing? Yeah, gotta go record. We're already live, so we're going to get ready to start recording. Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Story of America. This is Casual Saturdays with me, your host, DeAndre Pace, and my co-host, Rhett Williams. I was thinking about doing some type of weird intros. You remember those machinima intros from the old Steven Larson content? He's like, Steve here and Larson. I was thinking, well, I'm DeAndre and he's Rhett, and this is Story of America. I don't know. We got to find out a consistent intro, because it's not like we have intro music or anything like that. So,
You don't necessarily have to have an intro. Like a lot of podcasts don't have intros.
yeah, that's true. But want to stand out. Want to be the best. Want to be the very best there ever was.
We got a lot of catching up to do then.
Well, that's the real test. To train them as our calls, right?
This is not working right now.
You don't get the reference.
I do get the reference, but I just don't think it's applicable. I mean, we're not catching baby animals and forcing them to fight.
Well, technically
or adult animals.
Technically, we're catching.
No,
we're catching
no,
dumb
that's
little kids, and
that's not technical.
We're training them to fight off the radical leftist dogma and indoctrination. So technically,
technically is not the right word there. Broadly speaking, perhaps you could, I just don't think we should continue with that. It's a weak metaphor.
Okay, all right, okay. Like nobody knows what Pokemon is in your world, so
it's rather people know, but it's just like, who wants to be labeled a Pokemon?
I think a lot of people want to be labeled a Pokemon,
all right,
especially those crazies on the left.
I know you were going to say that. You just like to contradict everything I say as hard as you can.
Come on. I'm just saying there are people on the left that claim to be dragons. I mean, come on. Well, they would love to be a Pokemon. I mean, I've actually watched videos of people online on YouTube that got offended because somebody walked too close to them and they said that they crushed their wing. And the guy's like, "What are you talking about? What wing?" It's like, "I have invisible dragon wings growing out of my back, and you touched it." These people are nuts.
Those people aren't listening to us.
Well, they might be.
As soon as they heard anything, they would stop. I promise you.
70% of our audience is non-binary, so how are we?
I don't believe that. I think that those numbers are bogus. Bogus.
Yeah, I think some of the numbers are a little weird. I mean, we got people in Peru watching us.
They're just telling us all that like to placate us. I mean, I don't know.
I even think people
just seems strange that it just seems weird that the analytics are different on the app and the website.
Yeah, it's not a lot of consistency. Anywho, let me go ahead and give you permission to share because I always forget to do that when we start off. So that there, blah blah blah. And advanced sharing options, yeah, anybody can do that. Yeah, there we go. So you said you had something that you wanted to show me, a clip. So let's
well, it's 13 minutes, so we're gonna have to pause it at certain points and or just not play the whole thing, but I actually think the whole thing is interesting. So
this would be my first time seeing it because I didn't even watch it when you sent it to me because I was sleeping.
So shall we make it full screen or just leave it how it is?
You do whatever you want.
So, all right. Is that too loud? Can you hear it?
You haven't turned it on yet.
Could you hear it?
No, I don't hear anything right now. Did you
I just look.
Enable
all
sound
right.
button?
I don't even see it. Hold on. Let me go back.
You gotta make sure you hit that, check that box, optimize for video.
Okay.
Between aliens and the Nazis took place. When did all this start?
Let me begin. This is really, I'm telling you, Joe, this is a real deal.
I believe you.
This is, you ask, who are they? It's people who are psychically, genetically available to interface in this incredibly diverse universe with all these dimensions above and below and all around us with consciousnesses. And the truth is, no energy is ever destroyed. It all continues on. The truth is, our bodies, this is a fact, are a communal hive organism of all of our ancestors and all of their race memories, but not in just some compressed epigenetic system. It's beyond that. It's an electrochemical antenna, they've proven this, that connects to higher and lower dimensions. So our bodysuit, because our predecessors wouldn't put us in a position without giving us a bodysuit that is them. Our families are loving us. They're holding us. They're wrapped all around us. Their strength, their will, their bad, their good, their sins, the good things they did, the battles they won, the battles they lost, the woman they loved, the man they loved. It's all in us, all these people. It's why we're able to look into so many things and have so many different experiences. And so all the shaman, all the ancient religions, everybody says there are the good ones and there are the bad ones, and people are interfacing. So you say, where does it begin? From the Tibetans to the Mesoamericans to the Egyptians to the Druids to every ancient society describes the same thing. There are bad things that look like elves that have horns when they show you who they really are, and there are good things, but they don't contact you unless you contact them, and then they're almost not even concerned with what you're doing. I never bought into this, looked into it. But then I began to think about, what did I hear when I was a kid? What did I see? What was coming out in government documents? What was being admitted? When I read all these books about World War II and the Nazis and Hitler obsessed with the Dalai Lama and the Tibetans and what they were able to do without drugs to interface with this, and all the rituals they would do and how they would believe that beyond the ether, like at Skull and Bones, it's a German death cult, they do rituals and take drugs to talk to the goddesses. Well, they're just appearing as, sexy, beautiful women. It's whatever you want as these spirit guides, because lower entities will come in and violate your free will. God and his angels, which are below him, will not get involved in your everyday life. They will not manipulate your free will unless you ask them in. But then the devil masquerades as an angel of light. So we're on this planet, the third dimension, which is a launch pad to all the other dimensions below and above. The third dimension, all the mathematics shows, is the primal sea of where all this happens. And the Earth's like an egg, and we've got all this potentiality. And God will send out a transmission for a larger plan, but evil's willing to come in. And what does it say? Demoralize, get rid of children, don't have kids. Humans are bad. We'll be better once you're all gone. And it's because it's their operational mission for whatever reason that we'll understand later what's going on. So the Nazis, if you get into deep literature, they believed they were basically seancing and being possessed by entities that, I mean, it was before the Nazis. For whatever reason, it was the Germans that this happened to, and the Swiss. Like, they didn't discover LSD in the 30s. These people were running the psychology departments. They were interfacing with the occult. They were involved in all this crazy stuff. And it was all about their power and how great they were going to be. And the Germans were seduced. And they were seduced because they had high IQs, but more than that, they were psychically connected to each other and would work like robots. The Chinese and the EU want robots to replace us because they'll follow orders. And the Chinese are very conscious when they're conscious, but they're also very robotic. But the Germans are just as robotic. So this entity system picked Germans as its attempt, even in World War I, World War II, and it was manipulating the Brits as well, and offering them technologies, but two different paths. One was social control and all this other stuff with the Brits. The other was high-tech weapons, systems, interdimensional with the Germans. And so whoever these players are, and you can dial into it, but it's very dangerous. They're manipulating the British arm versus the German arm, and then they've got the Chinese arm that's almost seen as like their robot army. And so when you study it, the globalists go to these events, and they take bigger and bigger doses of drugs. They do electroshock. If you go back to owners of Time Life books, weren't just in the 20s and 30s into LSD and other hallucinogens. An apothecary, they were getting electroshock. They were having people turn their heart off to like try to communicate with these things to try to be dominant and get that. So you go back thousands of years, Merlin, the archetypal, or these magicians or these wizards are taking drugs in these temples and interfacing with these palantirs, these crystal balls, which aren't really crystal balls. It's their psychic focus of an interdimensional connection while they're on drugs, looking into glass, to then be able to see the future and understand what's happening, to give general power over the planet.
Stress something. So he mentions Palantir. You see, there's a problem with him mentioning that word, and that word is because it's not real. A Palantir is something that was created by J.R.R. Tolkien in the Lord of the Rings. Do you know the thing that that Saruman looks into and it turns into the Eye of Sauron and you can see Mordor? That is a Palantir. So when
I think he was
about that,
he was using that as a way to describe what he was talking about.
No, because most people don't know what a Palantir is. He should have just said crystal ball, because Palantir is not a
He did say crystal ball.
Yeah, afterwards, which is what I'm saying. But he should never have said Palantir, because Palantir is not real.
Oh my God. I think you're focusing on something that's
I just want to
totally irrelevant to this whole.
because
You're just zeroing in on something. That's not the point, though.
J.R. Tolkien's work is not the occult.
Oh my God.
So I don't think you should be saying mixing that word in, because it's not a
You're getting butthurt or something.
No, it's not butthurt. I'm saying
You really are.
It's not a real
Yeah, you are.
term. I mean, come on. If you say that we should always be on the facts, the fact is that it's not a real term. He should just said crystal ball and nothing else.
Okay. It's just derailed the whole thing. I don't even know what. I don't think there's a point in playing the rest of it.
I mean,
You remember what?
It sounds interesting, and what I've heard. There are a couple points of contention that I have of it, particularly about the Nazis, because in my research of it, I've never seen the Nazis as being trying to connect with these interdimensional beings. So I've heard rumor of them trying to do certain other things that weren't connected to the to interdimensional beings. And it wasn't that they were a conglomerate or a hive body, to use his term, of their ancestors, but Hitler
Oh, those are two
literally,
different. Okay, listen. He jumps all over the place. Those two topics are not connected. Just
you're
to be
fading
clear,
in
I
and
don't,
out.
you,
Something's going on with your sound. Like you're like you'll speak and then it'll just pause. It'll be broken up a little bit. I don't know. Maybe it's lagging a little bit.
okay. If you have to understand how it seems like you're not very familiar with Alex Jones and the way that he talks,
I'm
because
familiar with
he
him. I just
jumps
haven't
from
listened to him in a long
subject.
time.
He jumps to, okay, well, I've listened to him a lot. He jumps from thing to thing to thing, and sometimes they're completely unconnected. Like what the first thing you just said is not connected with the Nazi part of that whole spiel. It's several different topics that he just went from one thing to the next. The point was not necessarily to dissect what he's talking about. The point was just to start the topic. So when he says interdimensional beings, you can think of those the same as well, different people will think of them differently. Like most people, if they're scientifically minded, not just scientifically minded, I don't want to just say that, atheistic
You're still
or
picking up some internet
something
lag.
approximating that, I don't know why. Is it, do I need to
It
turn
only
this back
happens
up?
only happens very briefly. Like you'll pause. Like right now you're good, but some like briefly in between, sometimes it just break up.
The term that he's using, interdimensional beings, you could see it as aliens, or you could see it as spiritual beings. That's what he's talking about. The Nazis, and there's a long history of the occult and Nazis. I mean, there's tons of this. It's not just something that, there's lots of literature on it. They were involved with that kind of witchcraft, sorcery kind of stuff, and they were obsessed with the Tibetans, and they spent a lot of time over there because they really did think that they were getting information from another plane of existence. Yeah, I don't, it's the people who we consider the globalists now, or that's just a word you could use for them, New World Order people. They also have involvement in the occult, and that came out during the 2016 election. You remember all those rituals and stuff that came out, and the pedophilia ring is attached to that.
Yeah, and
Because according to their beliefs, they think that they are gaining the life energy from these children.
yeah, and that would happen to go with the thing about the adrenochrome and all of that stuff. But also, um, when I looked into some of the Nazism, some of the beliefs, they believed that they were born of the Atlantean species, which, if you want to say, was part of an
Yeah,
interdimensional
well,
being, because some
that's what
people
I'm talking
believe
about.
that the Atlanteans weren't humans, but they were aliens from a different world, and they came here and they didn't sink as written in Plato's story, but they got in their spaceship and they left after the earthquake that happened. Whereas others believe that they're under the bottom of the ocean in some type of, big force field, or and some people who believe that the earth is flat and it's hollow. Some people believe that they just live inside the earth. And one of the big things that Hitler used to do to try to justify his position for being part Atlantean was he looked a long time for orichalcum, and I'm pretty sure you know what orichalcum is, but and it's one of the interesting things about the Germans is just how much they believed in the science of alchemy, and orichalcum is very important in that because it's almost considered to be a magic metal, even more valuable than gold in alchemical sciences. So Hitler had a whole bunch of things going on. It was probably mostly the drugs that was messing him up, but he had a whole bunch of stuff going on. And a lot of people theorize that's the reason why he lost the war, was because he was everywhere, kind of like how Alex Jones was in that video, just everywhere trying to address multiple things at multiple points rather than being focused on the mission at hand.
Yeah, he does that a lot.
He had a bigger mission. I think that might have been what Hitler's problem was. Other than being a genocidal maniac, his problem was, and the reason why he lost the war was because, even to us, it seemed as though his strategy was very poor because he was scattered. To him, perhaps he thinks that doing all these things at once was a part of a much larger plan that nobody else could see the vision for but him.
So if you see that clip in the context of the whole podcast, it makes more sense. But I'm just going to a little bit more, because the point I'm trying to make is not what he's doing right here is describing what the globalists believe based on documents that he has read that are written by some of those people.
But like the Bible tells you, any pharmakia or any of that always leads to destruction, because only evil is going to come through that way. So we're
What?
So bump the volume up just a little bit.
basically have these light sockets. We can't jack into the higher unless it's our free will, and that takes time. We jack in to the evil. So you can jack into evil, you can't jack into good right away. So it's quicker, it's easier, like Yoda says about Darth Vader. Quicker, easier, more seductive. And so then I remember being a kid, and my parents, they don't really get mad about this, it's whatever. They didn't even know what they were hearing at the time. But they had friends that they knew at UT that were involved in research projects. And then they were, and 9 times out of 10, I read about research projects in San Francisco. UT has some, MIT has a lot, and stop me anytime you want.
Okay. It's the next part of what he's going to talk about is basically explaining how these people use drugs, psychedelics specifically, to get into contact with these entities. And that kind of has a little bit to do with what we were talking about last week. Only evil will come through by those methods.
Yeah, and and as I was listening to that, that is a very nice analogy that he used, because one of the things that we usually talk about when it comes to power and the pursuit of it is absolute power corrupts absolutely. And if that's all that you seek, and you don't seek the wisdom and power or the ability to help with power, or the wisdom to only use power when power is necessary, it corrupts absolutely. And you see that with these people. And again, talking about jacking into the evil, when you dwell in the occult, and I've researched the occult for a long time because I find it interesting. But when you dwell and delve into the occult phenomenon and the spiritual world, because the earth is the domain of Satan and all of his minions and demons and spirits, it is so much easier when you open that portal for those like Satan to come through than it is for those from heaven. Because if, as you know, heaven is behind a firmament, which is not a literal barrier in the sky, but it's in a, to use Alex Jones's term, in a different interdimensional plane of existence is where heaven is.
Right.
And
Yeah, you
it's
can't go
supposed to
find
be
it.
up there. Whereas everything that Satan has, if you believe in what happened and what it says in the book of Job, is here on earth, and that he is the Lord of this land, and he walks to and from this land every day, seeking to see who he can corrupt. And his demons, his spirits of influence, never stop working. And the only ones that need extra work to be summoned are the most powerful, which are not in
Right.
hell, but are guarding the 7 portals to hell. you know.
Yeah. The ones that they do summon, like those are the ones that you know the names of. Those are the ones you do not want around, and they will stick around.
Yeah, and what it's called is the 72 pillars of hell, and above the 72 pillars of hell, which there are the seven princes of hell. And so when you have the 72 pillars, one of those 72 pillars is a creature like Astaroth, which we've made a big video game comic book character out of. But Astaroth is one of the most dangerous and
The
deadly.
same with
Baal,
Asmodeus,
Beelzebub. Asmodeus is one of the seven
Apollyon.
princes of hell. So let's see. The seven crown princes of hell, as I recall, it's Asmodeus, Mammon, Leviathan, Lucifer, Satan, Beelzebub, and Baal. Belial. If I'm
Okay,
not
so it
mistaken.
depends on like what perspective you're coming at this, because Beelzebub is Lord of the Flies, right? He was but it's also a name that's used for the devil as well in the Bible, but it is a separate entity. Now, Lucifer and Satan, that's debatable, but most of the time they're viewed as the same.
Yeah, most of the time
Um,
they're the same, but they say that Lucifer and Satan are two different aspects of the devil. Lucifer is pride, Satan is the wrath. That's what they
I
go
would
for.
see Satan as the adversary, the deceiver, the liar, the Lord of lies,
Yeah,
and Lucifer is the version of him that masquerades as an angel of light or the prideful. He's the one who fell, of course, and which also reminded me, Paradise Lost is a great artistic depiction of that. But it's also uh, the Divine Comedy. The way that it describes in Paradiso, whenever Dante finally makes it to all through, it's basically what he says is he travels to the different planets, and on each planet is a certain level of blessedness as he goes higher and higher blessings. So the first stage is the moon. Those people are still technically in paradise or heaven, but they don't view themselves as being less blessed than, it's just once you get to that point, it's still heaven. But once he gets to the Empyrean, which is the final level that's outside this mortal realm, outside the physical plane, it's then described to him that there's nobody really living on these planets. We just did this so that you'd be able to understand in your human mind the different levels of blessing within paradise. And then when he finally gets to where God is, he basically, he doesn't do a cop out, but it's like he describes it in a way that he can barely remember. But what he does describe, I think, was a great depiction. He describes seeing the Godhead as a as a massive ring of light, a blinding ring of light with all the colors coming out of it. And then next to that is another ring reflecting back onto the first one with a man inside of the ring. And the third ring is a ring of fire that's constantly circling between the two of them, like a figure eight or an infinity kind of symbol. And I don't think I've ever heard another description of trying to describe what God might look like in physical terms than that one. Because obviously the first ring, the ring of light with all the colors, even colors that we don't know of, that we can't perceive, as the Father, obviously. And then the second ring that's reflecting back onto the first one with the form of a man in the middle is the Son, the incarnation. And the fire that circles between the two of them is the Spirit.
Well, you see, when I was listening to you say that, to me, it doesn't sound like the description of God. It sounds more like the description of the Ophanim, which is one
No,
of
no,
the
no, no, no. The ophonym is, I know what the ophonym are. No, the wheel within a wheel, completely different. So I can actually find a pic. One thing that's a pet peeve of mine is the way that artists in the Renaissance would depict angels, because they look nothing like that. They look like eldritch horrors.
the only time the angels ever looked like they looked in artist depictions was when they had to come down and assume human form, like
Yeah.
in order to communicate. But when you actually see them in heaven,
Oh yeah,
they do not appear human.
terrifying.
Yeah,
So
and I
let me
think
find a good.
do you remember that when what was it? Was it when Joseph was visited by Gabriel and Gabriel had to tell him, "Don't be afraid of me."
Oh yeah, that's why they
Because
always say be not afraid, because they're terrifying. Okay, let me find a good picture. Um, you know what? Actually, I've seen some videos of artist depictions that actually look. Let me see if this one's a good one.
I've seen some depictions of Ophanim as equations in circles, within circles, and then of course the Ophanim and the thrones, what some people call them, though
The elders, the thrones.
some
Thrones
people,
are ophonym, right? The
yeah,
same.
the thrones are Ophanim, but some depictions of ancient genealogy say that the Ophanim and the thrones are different, but the thrones are part of the order of Ophanim, just as the seraphim and the cherub, they are different orders, the cherubim and the seraphim, but both orders can be part of some of the classes of archangels, which you have different, angelology is so much more difficult to understand than demonology. It's we were able to get, this practically everything we can get from demonology. Angelology is much more difficult, and I would I would have to say that goes back to how we open this conversation up, is that it's much easier to get access to demons than it is to get access to angels, which is the reason why we have a much more concrete study of demonology than we do angelology. Whereas we had the study of angelology, what we call them the cherubs, the seraphim, the ophanim, and then we have the principates. And then we have all these different classes in there, and it's debatable who is actually an archangel, because some in some depictions there's only four, and some there are seven, and some there are eight, and there's many different depictions of who is exactly an archangel. Is it just going to be the ophanim? uh, you know
I think that's what this one is.
I think that the ophanim is the least likely angel that you are to encounter on earth.
Yeah.
They are specifically designed
Well,
for
they're only
execution
described
of the
one
throne of God.
time.
Yeah, transporting the throne.
It's a cherub.
Is that a cherub or is that a
That's a
seraphim?
cherubim. That's a cherub. Ophanim, of course, again. The last one I think is a seraphim. That's what it's got to be. With the six wings. Yeah.
The seraphim and the cherubim look very, very similar, except for the wings. However, that depiction of it is quite not the way that I would have imagined it, because the seraphim are supposed to have their wings covering their faces.
Yeah.
Not all of the
That's
angels have
still
to
a
be
whole lot.
eyeballs everywhere.
Still a whole lot closer than, the typical, the baby with wings, the Cupid. Basically, that's what it's inspired by.
Well, I mean, that's the way the Greeks envisioned it, of course, when actually the Romans, because by that time the Greek Empire was already pretty much collapsed. But when they started to adopt and bastardize Christianity because of Nero and the other accusers of Christ, they bastardized everything and Romanized it and made it look the way their culture would foresee the angelic spirits and things of that nature.
I think it was
However,
the Renaissance artists who decided to paint them like that. Well, it was really the church. It was the Catholic Church. So I suppose you're correct. Although I don't think they did it on purpose to bastardize it. I just think that people wouldn't have known what to do with paintings that are actually biblically accurate.
they go crazy. Like some people used to say that reading the book of Revelation would make you go crazy.
It does make people go crazy. Fundamentalists, they lose it. They're just like, oh my God. And they start theorizing about it and everything, when in reality, it's not the one you need to be focusing on. For most people, I think, get your life together before you worry about prophecy.
I describe myself as a fundamentalist.
I don't know if you're a fundamentalist or not. I think a fundamentalist, and I think of a fundamentalist as a completely ignorant person, because they think there's only one way and it happened exactly like I say it did. And I mean, if you were really a fundamentalist, you would not be a scientist also.
See, for me, that's not the definition of fundamentalism. To me,
Well, that's what everybody else's definition of it is.
well, I use the definition in science, which is the fundamental forces. To me, the bare basics.
We're not talking about the same
fundamentalism
thing.
is to me.
We're not talking
So
about the same thing.
I guess my definition of fundamentalism prevents me from being part of the greater collective of fundamentalists.
Well, you understand what I'm saying is that your definition,
understand what
we're
you're
talking,
saying.
this is semantics. We're talking about two different things now. Because a fundamentalist would not also be a scientist. And if they were, they would base all of their scientific conclusions on the literal English words they read out of the Bible. And just very surface. Fundamentalists are very surface level people.
I would agree on that factor. And that's the reason why when I teach religion in any degree, and I hate actually teaching religion, though it has to be done. I don't shy away from the topic when I have an opportunity, but I don't like teaching religion. What I like to do is I like to force people to teach themselves religion by making them read sources. And the way that I always do that is I tell them, okay, you heard of the story. Okay, go read it. Okay, then they go read it. And I say, okay, what do you think? And they tell me this and that. And I say, okay, now take that and go read the Hebrew version of it. And then tell me what you think of that. And then we talk about and exchange it, because the only way that you will be able to get a true picture of any real religious dialect, and especially the Bible, because of how many different dialects and translations it has become, you have to look at different sources and always compare it to the original, which is the Hebrew and Latin version.
Hebrew and Greek.
Oh, yeah, Greek. I always go with the Latin.
Latin is a translation of the Hebrew and Greek, though. Anyway, the Vulgate. The problem is, I think most people really, a surface level understanding is just the easiest thing. And they'll just be more confused if they don't have it explained to them. Because even if you can read the words in Greek and Hebrew, that doesn't mean it's a high context culture. You have to understand the culture and not just read the words.
Which is the importance of studying all cultures, all religions. I mean, for me, studying all cultures and all religions, it's fun because I love theology. I love mythological societies and things like that. And not that I want to jump ship and talk about anything else, but when I listen to the things of interdimensional portals and stuff, listen to Alex Jones, immediately my mind goes to, oh man, this guy's read too much of the Cthulhu mythos, because that's an entire that's an entire world of
Well, I mean, it's a real mythos because it's based on, it's got a mythological structure, and it's just kind of taken on a life of its own because all the people that have added to it over the years. But yeah, that kind of horror is one of the scariest kinds of horror to me. And some of the artistic depiction of
beast of its own, and especially when you think of what's the one, I think it's like Azov or something like that, and we're all
Azathoth, the one that's being
living in its dream, and then once it wakes up, we all just die. We just poop out of existence.
Yes, that is Azathoth. Oh man, there we go. Azathoth. That he's literally sleeping, and he's got these other like pipers around him, keeping him asleep. The blind idiot god, because he doesn't have any intelligence. He's just sleeping and dreaming. That's another one that I think is really scary is Nyarlathotep, the one that appears as a. No, that's not him. He's the messenger of the outer gods. Yeah, here he is. He's got so many, he's a shapeshifter, but sometimes he appears as a pharaoh. Who is the one that's the black goat of the wood? Yog-Sothoth is the one that Hermaeus Mora is based off of in the Elder Scrolls. The keeper of hidden knowledge.
See, I've never played Elder Scrolls. People keep telling me to play it though.
It's got a mythos. It's got a mythos like it's got a very, very developed lore. I think you would like it a lot, actually.
People been telling me to play Elder Scrolls since we were in high school. And I just keep
it's your kind of stuff. It's my favorite game series other than The Legend of Zelda.
I didn't know,
but it's right up there.
Geek.
Dude.
Oh, the Triforce. Is that the Triforce of Power?
It's just the whole thing, dude. Triforce.
You know, they have a whole bunch. There's a whole bunch of theories about the Triforce as well that give people. You know, have you heard of theories about the Triforce not being complete because the fourth piece is missing?
Yeah, I think that's stupid. I mean, the fourth one, then, what do they call it? The Triforce of Love or something stupid like that.
They used to say that the reason why it's such a found theory was because on the original Hyrule Shield, the shield, there were 4 symbols. There were the Triforce, and then there was upside down triangle. But in every game afterwards, they took the triangle from the bottom off of it, and you know it.
I think it's one of those series that's just like reaching too much. But okay, so let's say that is the case. Now what? What difference does it make? Nobody ever talks about it in the games.
I think the only difference that it makes is that there's potentially another god out there, because you know the Triforce represents the 3 golden goddesses.
Well, there is Hylia.
Well, yeah, but she's a lesser deity than the golden goddesses. So
yeah, and she couldn't even use it.
If there is a 4th Triforce piece, then that means that there is a 4th golden goddess or a god of the same level or higher level than the golden goddesses. And some people like to say that Demise is the 4th piece, but he's a demon from the the underworld.
No, he's I don't think that that's the case, because I think that it's 3 goddesses is supposed to be like archetypal representation of like the Trinity, because Christianity is not the only religion that has a godhead like that. Hinduism has it as well.
The oldest one. Hinduism is perhaps the oldest one to represent it, with Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma.
Yeah, Brahma, and they're all supposedly aspects of the same god. So, by the way, have you seen that video at CERN where they did like a mock human sacrifice in front of the Shiva statue?
No, I haven't.
But so you know what I'm talking about? The Shiva statue that's like it's got him doing his cosmic dance for the end of the universe at the place where they have the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland.
Yeah.
It's crazy, dude. And then they came out and said, oh, it was just a joke. Like, dude, come on now. You're doing a fake human sacrifice in front of the statue of the god of destruction.
And you know the thing about Hindu religion is that so unique is that Shiva is really the only one that still kind of exists because he was the one that they feared the most. Brahma, who was originally the most powerful one, the creator god, he apparently in the mythos, I don't want to mess it up because it's been a while since I read through it. In the mythos behind it, he did something, and people started turning against Brahma. So Brahma's temples virtually get no praise, and there's like really only one temple left that's dedicated to Brahma that people actually go to, and those people are the most serious of the occult when it comes to that part of their religion. They are like shamans of Brahma. But then Vishnu and Shiva, they kind of took on their own thing, where Vishnu is the preserver god, and Shiva is the destroyer. But because Shiva was feared so much and was always doing something, everybody knows Shiva and his wife Kali, because she has two different names. She has two different names. At one point, she is, the most beautiful and generous of all of the goddesses. She's so fertile. And then when you make her mad, she becomes more destructive than Shiva.
Yeah, she's like Medusa.
And then their son
somewhat.
Hanuman.
There's so many millions.
And the god with the elephant head. When Shiva cut off his own son's head, and then his wife found out about it and said, "Bring my son back to life, or I will kill you." And so he cut off an elephant's head and stuck it on top of his son's head, and then that's how the elephant god was born.
I don't remember the elephant's name. I think it was Vishnu who incarnated as the avatar Krishna, correct? And he would supposedly come and reincarnate anytime somebody needs to. I mean, it's like an incarnation, basically, but it's not exactly the same idea. The thing about Hinduism is they make everything into a lesser god. Everything, even like the god of doorknobs and all that stuff. Like, the problem is that they separate everything out into something separate. And I think the idea in the Judeo-Christian view is that everything in creation is an extension and a part of God. But it exists separately from him, though.
I've always explained to people like Jay the difference between our Trinity and the Trinity of other gods. So in the Trinity of our Trinity, this is them. They're all on the same level because they all exist the same. There's no difference between God, the Holy Spirit, and Christ. They're all the same being, just in different aspects. But when you talk about the Holy Trinity in, say, Hinduism, there's a clear pecking order, with Brahma being at the top, then Shiva and Vishnu right beneath him, and then everybody else comes beneath that. There's a clear pecking order. Shintoism is the same way. At the top levels of Shintoism, you have Izanami and Izanagi. They're up there at the top. Beneath them are their kids, Tsukuyomi, Susanoo, and Amaterasu are right beneath them, and then beneath them are the other lesser gods, and beneath them are the other ones. Same thing with practically all other religions that have that type of structure.
There is a hierarchy in Christianity, but it mainly concerns the angels.
Yeah, the hierarchy in angelology is pretty much the only real hierarchy.
Although you could say, and some people do think of it this way, that the Father is, when we talk about God, we're talking about the Father. But this is the way I like to describe the Trinity, because I don't think it's as complicated as people try to make it. So they're all the primal force, God, the essence from which everything else is literally being itself as being, or to be to be. The Father is that mind, the primordial consciousness that is pre-existent, self-existent, and that just is. The Son is the creative force within that mind that extended creation outside of itself. And the Spirit is what makes possible communion within the two of them and with all of humanity. But they're all the same being.
You know, I like to believe that the Spirit is the consciousness that dwells within us, that links us to Him, which is pretty
That's
much,
what I
I
said.
think,
Yeah,
the
that's
same
what
thing
I'm
that you
saying.
just think the thing that you
Yeah,
just
the
said,
Spirit
because
is just the
I've often
communion
said
between.
that we are only as powerful as the Spirit that dwells within us, and if that Spirit be the Spirit of God, then that's the reason why we can say that we should have no fear of any evil force, because that Spirit dwells within us. But we also have our own spirit that dwells within us that fights for supremacy over the vessel. And
That's why like what he was saying in that first video, like those evil entities will come in and violate your free will.
yeah,
But
because yeah, I like when he said that too, because I think that's a nice explanation as just for some of these people that say, oh, God's not real because he never gets involved. Well, he told you he wasn't going to get involved at the beginning because he gave you freedom of will. He told you that every choice that you make, he lays before you blessings and curses. And he did get involved before. He got involved twice. He got involved when he flooded the earth, and then he got involved when he became flesh as Christ. And he won't get involved again until he's ready to, wipe the board clean.
humans, I like to think of in a sense like miniature gods,
We really are.
because we are the only beings in existence that actually have a choice. And we were created for the sole purpose of having a choice, actually having free will, because nothing else has it like we do. And also
Even
the
the angels don't
self-awareness,
have the same free will.
the self-awareness that we have, I think, is the image of God, because we are aware that we have a choice and we're aware that we exist. And we also are able to say, I am, in a sense, I am this, I am that, because we know that we exist. And I think I've heard the saying, God became man so that man could become God. I like that saying because I think it gets pretty close to what the whole point of this is so that we can actually exist on that level with him and have communion with him.
Well, when you think about life as a series of obstacles and hurdles, and it does make sense that this existence is a huge test to see if you're ready to live in a dimension above what you are now. If you can't handle it, if you can't handle the pressure here, there's no way you'll be able to handle it there. And the entire purpose of it is to try to uh, sh- humble ourselves here, so that when we go into the other plane of existence where we do not have the power of authority that we have down here, we are preparing ourselves to meet that level of power uh, that we cannot on the physical plane ever comprehend.
Well, we can only exist that. We can only get to that level through humility, but we still, in a sense, even then would exist only through God, but he will allow us to exist in communion with him on a higher plane of existence, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I sometimes I like to think of what our world would be like had Eve never ate the apple or the fruit, which wasn't an apple. We don't know what type of fruit it was. Some people say it was a fig, but had Eve never bit the fruit of knowledge, and had she never tempted Adam to do it, sometimes I wonder where would we be, how much power would we have if we stuck to the plan, so to speak.
Well, I don't think that would be, I mean, the fruit, this is another thing that Dante wrote about in Paradiso.
I mean Dante's Inferno, or
Well, it's the Divine Comedy. Paradiso is the third part. Purgatorio is the second. Inferno is the first. Um, he encounters Adam in the Empyrean, which is the final layer of heaven. And he asks Adam, how long were you in the garden before you ate the fruit? And he said 6 hours. So obviously that's just an artistic depiction of possibly, but I could believe it, 6 hours. And he also explained that it wasn't about eating any fruit. It was just about the fact that they disobeyed, but that tree was put in there in order to introduce free will into existence, thereby introducing the possibility of evil. But it was brought into existence because it had to be, because there couldn't be free will otherwise. And we'd never have a choice.
it's true in many respects. But I've also heard the theory that there was no knowledge in any of the tree, in any of the fruit, but that it was simply, as you put, the fact that they made the choice to disobey, and that when God asked them, "How did you know that you didn't have clothes on?" It wasn't because of the fruit, the tree. It was because of the serpent, which was Satan, who told them they had no clothes.
Yeah. Well, another thing about that is if you read the Hebrew, basically what he says is just a sly play on words, because the term in Hebrew that God uses signifies that he didn't actually mean, he said, you'll die, this day you'll surely die. But the Hebrew term basically means you shall be doomed to death. And when the serpent in English also says, ye shall not surely die, to Eve, the Hebrew term that he uses basically, you're not going to die right now. You're not, death is a long way off. But in English, for some reason translate it the same, but it was just a play on words to trick her. Like it was a half truth.
Because the truth being is that, if we had never did it, would we be immortal? Perhaps. But by opening up the invitation to sin, which for the wages of sin is death, by opening up that to all of the rest of humanity, now you are on a time scale, you're on a clock. And as you know, later on in depictions of the biblical of the Bible, you are promised 70, which is 70 years, and then you are able to gain more time atop that based on the actions and deeds that you do, based on how you treat your vessel, based on how you communicate with God, and all that stuff. And some people like to say that we kind of got bred out of the immortality, because Methuselah, what was he, 967 years old when he died?
So those ages in the Old Testament, I don't think that they're literal ages. I think they're symbolic, and I have good reason to think so, because I used to just accept it at face value. But it has something to do with Abraham. Oh yeah, Abraham was told that he was going to have a child at such and such age, and he didn't believe it because of his age. But if you look in scripture, his father would have been near the same age. So why would he have thought that it was strange if his father was just as old as he is? And so I looked into some of the numbers that are used, and some of those numbers, like I think Joseph and Joshua, they had a certain, I don't remember what age it was, but those numbers signified having lived the perfect Egyptian life. I don't know what Joshua had to do with Egypt, but
to me, I also have my own theories about it as well. My theory was more so about the passing of the phases of the moon. I always believed that they counted their ages based off of how many full moons they had lived to see.
I've never heard that.
I mean,
Where's you?
that was just my own headcanon. Was if you take the numbers and you multiply by how many times you see a full moon in a year, and then you divide that by their age, you get closer to what a normal human lifespan would be.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I would say a fundamentalist would just accept it at face value. But then you think about the fact that is it is it doctrinally necessary that those ages are literal? No, I don't think so. I mean, they can be symbolic. That doesn't mean it's not true.
And but I think J.R.R. Tolkien's work in Lord of the Rings, really not in Lord of the Rings itself, but in the Silmarillion, is another way that it was explained by another artistic interpretation. In the Silmarillion, there are various beings that were bred from Maiar spirits, which are lesser angelic spirits, to the Valar, which are like the high archangels, or pretty much Eru Ilúvatar is God. The Valar, which are part of the Ainur, are pretty much the Greek pantheon of gods. They're the most powerful beings, or they're the archangels. And then the Maiar spirits are all the lesser gods, lesser angels type of stuff. Well, there are beings of the Middle Earth that were born between the union of elf, or union of man, and Maiar, or union of elf and man. Elves being immortal, Maiar being formless and immortal. And when they took and wed it with humans or other elves, they became half Maiar, half human. And rather than becoming either whole human or whole Maiar, they were given the choice to be either whole Maiar and return to the Undying Lands, or become human. And how the Numenorians came to be.
Talking. I gotta go to the bathroom real quick. Just keep going.
Yeah, I'm going to keep going. Of course, you're going to miss all of it, but we apologize for these technical difficulties. Rhett has to go drain his faucet. And we'll be back after these messages. You know what? I want to, well, while he's going away, let me see if I can find a video that we can all partake and watch. See here. I think it'd be fun. And let's see. Let's see if I can find anything that's good. Look here. You know what I think I'll do? I'll go like this. I'll go like this here. Turn this on. Oh, I gotta turn this on. And I'll wait for Rhett to return. Turn this on. What's going on here? Oh, look, you made it
Return.
back. You made it back before I even found the video to play while you were gone, because I was gonna just keep talking, but I was gonna play a video while I was talking. But since you made it back, I don't have to do that. Anywho, as I was saying, rather than being made full elf or full human or full Maiar spirit, they were given the choice to choose whether they would be full human or full elf or full Maiar. And most of the time they chose to be either human or elf. Like for instance, Elrond, his name is Elrond half elven because his parents are half human, half elf. And his brother Elros chose to be human, and his bloodline became the Numenorians, with Aragorn being one of them. And you see Aragorn in Lord of the Rings, he's 87 years old, 88 years old, but still looks like a man in his 40s because of the Numenorian blood, which prolonged Numenorian's life. But over time, as the Numenorians began to wed with other non-Numenorian people, their lifespan became shorter and shorter until they became just like normal men's lifespan. And so by the time Aragon died, he was well over 200 years old because he had half elf blood. And I kind of say, well, that's an interesting interpretation that some people can say might be the same thing for Adam and Eve being able to live about 900 years old, Methuselah them 967, as they began to breed with other human beings outside of the Garden of Eden and outside of of God's influence, and they just continue to breed over and over again, that longevity begins to die out, and people begin to have shorter lifespans as life went on, until eventually we are where we are now, where the average human lifespan is about 70 years, depending on good food. And extreme cases, people can live to be 120.
Well, there is a place in Genesis where it says, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. It says basically the days of men shall be 120. Of course, there's people alive today that are older than that. So, by a couple years, not much. So it's really difficult to assume that that just means that's the limit. It could be, I don't know. I don't really know. About 120.
That's why I say the same thing about the New Testament, which promises 70 years.
Of course, but even that's not promised to anybody.
Yeah, and that's why I say that it's an interpretation left up to whether or not you take care of your vessel, whether or not you eat good, whether or not you have a good relationship with God, and based upon the area in which you live, and also based upon just outside influences. I mean, you never know when an asteroid's going to fall out of the sky and hit you at random. I mean, did you see the story about the elderly couple that was struck by lightning outside of the White House and died?
No, yeah, I did. I didn't read it. I thought you were going to say the story about that guy who was sitting at home in his recliner and an asteroid hit him in the head, or a little
I haven't
meteorite.
heard that. I haven't heard that story.
I mean, the chance, yeah, he died. it went right through his skull. It was just a little tiny. That's scary. But obviously,
that is terrifying.
The chances of that are so slim that it's just like, dude, it must have been meant to happen.
But did you also hear about the story of the guy who got struck by lightning 7 times and lived?
Yeah. Like, then you have stuff like that happens. And then you got that mural of George Floyd that gets struck. And that's the only part of the building.
That is my favorite instance of divine providence right there. Yeah, burn him down. Oh, show that he's not a martyr. But then you also have the case what happened in Russia a few years ago. The meteorite that comes down and explodes and blows up all of the glass windows in Russia.
Yeah, it looks cool too. But that's one of those events like that are so improbable. So I have a story about an event that happened to me. It was very synchronous. So let me see if I can actually find this, because I wrote it down. It'll be easier for me to just read it than try to remember exactly what it said.
What did you think of that video I sent you?
I don't remember which one.
The one with the New York church.
Oh yeah, dude. No, that's I'm not surprised. I am surprised and I'm not surprised. It was very disheartening.
AOC just called all drag queens are patriots.
Okay, here I found it. This is an essay that I wrote called on synchronicities as guideposts on the path of individuation. So
you don't like short titles, do you?
Well, some of them have short titles. This one just has a long one. So this is the story that's actually.
It's similar to my titles. My titles are all super long too.
So this is the story within the essay, though. I got out of prison on May 26, 2021. The next day, the 27th, I went to the Home of Grace for a 3-month rehab stint. Around week 10, everyone has to give a word of the day or a devotional during the morning meeting after breakfast. This takes place in the cafeteria when everyone in the program gathers there. I was in about week 8, knowing my turn to speak was getting close. I began to give some thought to what I might say. I tend to put a massive amount of thought and study into anything I speak in front of a crowd for any reason. I do not want to speak if I don't say anything worthwhile. Eventually, I settled on the word ripples. I got the idea when sitting on the front porch of our cottage, Mount Zion, and talking to one of my next door neighbors. He was quoting something he'd recently read in a book. Stick your finger in the water and pull it back out. That is how much of an effect you have in life. I found this to be a rather shallow and nihilistic viewpoint, but aside from that, it was plain wrong. I responded, "You might take your finger out, but the ripples stay long after your finger leaves the water." Everyone sitting around, of course, had to agree. I took the word and began to ponder over it, and I settled on a scripture passage to use with it. This was Deuteronomy 30:19. "I call heaven and earth as witnesses today against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore, choose life that both you and your descendants may live." As the day grew closer, I worked out a general idea of how I'd outline it. One night before chapel, I was sitting on my bed thinking it over, and then I decided I should probably begin to write down some ideas. I did, but quickly put away the paper for some reason. I began to make my way to the chapel as the time drew near. When I got closer to the cafeteria, which is where we were having chapel that night, I remembered that my roommate had gone to the library, so I decided I'd go and see if he was still in there before I went into the cafeteria. He was, so I walked in to see what he was up to. I began randomly browsing the shelves, and a book caught my eye. It was a collection of poetry for every day of the year, 365 to be exact. So I opened it up and a thought appeared in my head. Hey, I wonder what's on my birthday, which is October 26th. I flipped over to look, and when my eyes met the words on the page, I was stricken with a feeling of fear and trembling. I was in utter disbelief to see the title of the poem for October 26th, Deuteronomy 30:19. I had spent the past week and a half wrestling with these ideas, and I happened upon a poem with a title which was the very verse I was going to use for my word of the day. That's the story. That's a very, very strange coincidence. That was the most alarming one I've had. I've had plenty of weird stuff like that happen to me, but that was the one that just like knocked me back the most.
You know what? While you were reading, that, I was taken aback because it reminded me of a lot of the stuff that I have written, but it also reminded me, we've been going on this journey with the Federalist Papers and about what our place is in the world. And I love the idea of ripples because the effect is that of chaotician, which is the butterfly effect. Any small action that you do will ripple across the world and linger long after you have died, long after the action that you have made ceased to exist. That will still ripple and flow out through the world, and that's essentially the chaos theory. And I was reminded by when I started the website, the ministry, and and the reason why I started it in the first place. Do you remember this?
I can't see it. I mean, I see it, but I can't read it.
Well, I don't want to turn my screen off, but this is the Constitution of the ministry.
I don't remember that. No.
See, we all had to sign the Constitution of the
Oh,
ministry,
yeah, I do remember it now.
and so there was also the contract of the ministry, which we had to sign that as well. But I remember writing this, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, I feel almost as though perhaps we may be a new incarnation of the founders, not in the sense that we are like them, but in the sense that yeah,
We're
I
literally
wrote
them reincarnated.
it's sort of similar. I wrote this because I was tired of the oppressiveness of Visborg because it kept banning me and my brother because we shared the same IP address because we lived in the same house. So I made this ministry. I created a whole new website and we created a whole new constitution and wrote it out in such a way. Like, look, here's the preamble to the Constitution of the ministry. You ready for this? I haven't read this in so long. Here's the preamble. We the people form the democratic union that is the ministry. Here in these the days of the king, days we the people should come together to form for the perfect harmony amongst ourselves. We do this in order to form an equal assurance towards domestic equality, fair judgment, equal rights towards the people, and for the common welfare distributed towards all members in the hopes of the permanent lack of discrimination towards the people. Then I went on to write. Then I went on to write the rest of it. The concepts by which the ministry follows. I had our rules, and I had our ordinances and all that stuff. And then, I even had the. I even put brackets in there. You know, like you know how you have the brackets with the ellipses to signify that you took the quote from a larger quote based off of remember how we used to make posts in the admin hall and stuff. So I took quotes from that and made it into the Constitution of the ministry. And I said, what? Oh, what right here? Oh yeah, here's the part that makes it all the more like, uh, like I was taking inspiration directly from the Constitution. This is called the democratic constitutional equality. While this site is governed in an orderly fashion, this site is dedicated to the people. The ministry is pro-equality among members. In such terms, the overall power of the site will be divided into two branches, the executive branch and the people's branch. The executive branch, the executive branch will consist of the king and his higher authority and the chancellor as the second higher authority and the rest of the site staff as members as the legislative representatives and enforcers of the decisions and rules agreed upon and stated. The executive branch reserves the power to restrict the powers of the people's branch if need be. And in the people's branch, the members of the greater representative of this site. With that stated, we grant the right of popular vote and pending approval to the representatives within such causes to the people. The people's branch is dedicated to majority of voter polls as an ability to run for positions whenever positions are enlisted capable of expanding capacity. It is by these bylaws of traditional democratic notions that the equality of men be held in the hands of the majority rather than the tyranny of one or a few in power. Let us, the people, come together to regulate our system in good reasoning and in good fellowship with one another. This constitution adheres to the call of man and sees that a bill be made to ensure domestic equality amongst themselves, thereby a bill of individual rights made and decided upon under the jurisdiction of the law, which is the rules. And then I made a bill of rights. And then we all signed it at the end of it. And I was like, oh my God. But I looked at it like, oh, in various respects. Yeah, I think that was 11th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, sometime around there. I think it was like 20. Think no, that was 2012, 2013. So 11th grade and senior year.
Yeah.
So eloquently put for one so young, I might add.
I've read some of the stuff I wrote right after high school. And most of it, I'm just like, man, I'm embarrassed. This is the way I was thinking. But then some of it I'm reading, I'm just like, yeah, that's pretty spot on.
You know, I go back and I read some of my papers that I did when I was in college in English Composition 1. I go back and I read some of my speeches that I gave in public speaking. And I sit there and I'm like, you know, my goodness, I'm awesome. Yeah, because you know, I had to rewrite an entire speech for a narrative speech in about my life, and the way I think of writing in English Composition 1, because my teacher, she refused to read the rest of the paper after like page 2, and she wrote a big note on the side of the paper, and it said, "Too philosophical, not narrative enough." So I had to rewrite it to remove all of the questions and then rewrite it to be more narrative. And after she went back and she looked at the revised version, she's like, clearly you are a wonderful writer, and I would love to read some of your other writings and look at some of your artwork. And unfortunately, she never got to read it in my writings or see my artwork because I always just take a look at the first page, which is where the grade is, and I never read the entire thing to see the notes. So years afterwards, I'm looking at the notes that she wrote on there, and I'm like, oh, I was supposed to show her what my writings are about.
That reminds me of one time I mean, kind of. So I was in English comp. I think it might have been one, it might have been two, one of them. And it was a hybrid class at JD. So I just stopped going after like the first two classes, but I still did all my assignments online and I still got like 100 in that class. And my
You froze up on me.
last paper that I had to write, I decided to write it now.
Yeah, you better now.
Okay, the last paper I had to write in that class, I wrote it about globalism. And I did the whole thing in one night, just incredibly drunk, and I still got 100.
You know, speaking about being incredibly drunk, I had a premonition to myself because I believe that that drunkenness and addiction only affects weak people. And I know what you want to say. Oh no, no, it's not.
No,
It affects
listen, I can
anybody.
tell you
But
why but you never even tried any of the stuff, so you don't even know.
this is my premonition. This is my premonition. Hear me out. I haven't finished. So I sat there and I had a dream, and I was I was smoking weed one day, okay, out of a pipe, and it was all chopped up nice and finely, and it was like what my second or third time smoking. I don't need to smoke it. I don't even like it half of the time, but this particular time I was sitting in bed and I smoked it, and I had in my ears. I said, well, let me be Noah for an instance here. So I had in my ears techno music. I'm like, techno music. I get the old drug drug club vibe going. So so I'm listening to techno music. I've got blue lights flashing and shit, and I'm like, okay. And then I had this premonition while I was sleeping one day. I'm like, you know what? I drink I drink wine, I drink alcohol. I can drink 3 bottles of wine, and I remember everything that I say, everything that I do. I get so super wasted. I was so wasted that I was throwing up one time all over the place, and I've got to that point like 4 times in my life. And I'm like, you know what? But I still remember everything except for when I fell asleep. Yeah, but I don't remember that part. I remember everything leading up to that part, and and then falling asleep. But and then I said to myself, I'm almost tempted to try all of the other drugs just to prove that I can't be corrupted by the temptation of addiction.
Okay,
Because
let me tell you
I
why
don't
you're
need to drink alcohol. I don't need to smoke weed. I don't like any of it.
dude, I don't like those either. It's a real, I mean, it's a very simplistic way of viewing it, and obviously because you haven't experienced it. So of course that's what you would say. But you say it's not about self-control until you've already tried it. It's easy to stay away when you haven't tried something. But I guarantee you, anybody who does, especially a stimulant, it hijacks your brain in such a way that you really can't control it, especially meth. It's at that point, it's not about willpower because you've already sacrificed that part of yourself. It's not just, oh, I mean, that's a small component of it, maybe. But I think the main reason I tried all that stuff is just because I'm very open to try new things in general. And that's why I initially started. It's not because I was tempted, it's because I wanted to.
You see, I'm very different from you, but also the same in many regards. You see, I'm not very open-minded. I don't believe in trying things that I don't like, that I don't have an interest in. However, I'm very obstinate in my mind to where I will try something to prove myself right or wrong. Like for example, the relationship that I had with my ex. Uh, I knew that it was going to be a dreadful relationship. I knew that I was going to hate every moment of it, but I wanted to prove myself wrong. So I
That's a
decided.
terrible thing to
So
do,
I,
dude. That's
so I, but you see, that's how my brain works sometimes. So I did the relationship anyway, and I went against my better judgment just to see if perhaps my foresight of the future of that relationship was wrong. And obviously I was right. My foresight has never proven me to be wrong before. And see, people say that, oh, I'm just being arrogant and stuff like that. But I've I've done this enough to where I I kind of get a feeling for things, and it comes to me almost as a vision of the future almost. Where
It's
I can
called an
see,
intuition, sir.
well, yeah, it's intuition, but for me, I I can see things playing out almost exactly as they play out before they play out that way. I can see everything happening almost as if I'm
That's
watching it on TV.
intuition.
I- More like a
But it's
primitive.
also okay.
And so for me, I'm the
I
same
forgot
way
where I
that
was
you are.
going with that, but
I'm the same way that you are in that only try it because like you try it because you want to. I try it because I want to prove myself right or wrong.
so just to be clear, I'm not somebody who can be peer pressured into doing anything. I actually sought out drugs on my own. Nobody presented it to me. I actually went and found it because I just wanted to try it. But nobody's ever pressured me into doing anything that I didn't want to do.
Who do you think had more control, you or Sandig?
I did at first. Well, we kind of split ways and he just kept doing his own thing. But at a certain point, it seemed like he lost his mind. And after that, we just never
the
talked again.
the last time I seen Sandig, I think I think he might have got clean the same as you. He vapes a lot. I know that much, but I think he might have got clean too because he seems more coherent than the last time. When you guys were really into it. But it's been a while since I've seen and
Yeah.
spoke with Sandig.
Now, as far as I know, I have way more experience with drugs than he does. But during the brief time right after high school that we were still hanging out, he was just doing drugs with me. And then he kind of just started drinking Delsum and beer at the same time. And after that, I just don't really, we stopped communicating. Anyway, that's
I think the worst what's the worst thing I've ever done? Uh, trying to compare my I mean, other than some of my rhetoric, sometimes I can say things that aren't so nice, and I don't think anybody would ever say that I was a nice person. Um, rhetoric. Speaking about my rhetoric. Um,
I don't really
I
think
don't.
it's
The worst thing that I've ever done, as far as substances are,
worst.
there, wa-
It's kind
there
of a
was this
scale like
there was this one
this.
time when I tried to kill myself. I took uh I took every day. Well, I wasn't trying to kill myself, but I was trying to, but not trying to, because I didn't like the feeling of what death would feel like, but I didn't want to live anymore. And I was in middle school, so I was taking like 5 or 6 ibuprofens every day before school for like
That's like
for
nothing.
like for like 3 years,
Yeah, but
and
five or six,
it
dude,
got to the
one
point where
prescription ibuprofen is 800 milligrams.
no, I wasn't doing prescription. I was doing over the
I'm
counter.
telling you,
But
five or six
what
is
I'm saying,
barely more than one prescription pill. Anyway,
what I'm saying is I was doing so much of it, and with my weight class, which I shouldn't have done as much of it as I was doing, it got to the point where it was burning away the inside of my intestines. That's why I had to
yeah, it'll
stop
do
doing
that.
it. And then I guess afterwards, I was in I was 22, 23 years old, and I was dealing with some really powerful uh feelings of depression, and I I went to the store and I got me some sleep aids. They weren't working, so I take 4 of them, and then I drink uh, a glass of Crown Black afterwards behind it. So I guess that's the worst thing I've ever done is take sleep aids with Crown Black. You know,
That's not very much.
you know,
I'm just saying.
I
So
don't know.
I almost
What's
died
the worst
once.
thing I've ever done?
Almost died once, right after high school, right after graduation. And I had to go to the hospital. I overdosed. Like my lips were purple. I was in cardiac arrhythmia, and I didn't even know until the next day, but it was a cocktail, dude. It was like so many different things. I'd have to write them out. I mean, it was an inhuman amount of drugs, and I shouldn't have survived. But
I mean, the only time I
yeah,
got to that level was obviously, you know, the only time I got to that level of drugs was when I was trying to drink energy drinks to stay afloat, working and going to school at the same time, and then had the whole thing with the bleach and the box in the chest and the hospital, and then the oxycodone and Flexeril and all that stuff.
yeah, but that's still not the level I'm talking about.
Of course,
It
for
was way
me,
more than just that.
that the oxy probably wouldn't have had any effect on you, but for me, it had me walking around in a daze. My eyes were
Yeah, it would have had
back
an
of my
effect
head.
on me. I mean, if I took enough, it would depend on when, because I stopped doing opioids probably when I was like 20, or I only did them for like the first couple of years, thankfully. Because now,
Yeah,
I mean,
because now it's
I'd be
full
dead for
on.
sure. It's all, yeah. But even it's not just opioids like heroin that has fentanyl in it. And now it's everything. It's meth, it's
Well,
crack,
weed
it's
has
cocaine,
fentanyl in it too.
it's fake pills, fake Xanax and all. Like it's killing people because there's literally fake pills that have enough in one to kill you.
Yeah, because people don't understand what we talk about when we say it has enough to kill you. Fentanyl. If I want you guys to visualize this, because this is it's supposed to be all about conspiracy, casual stuff, but now we're getting into drug safety, and this is important. The fentanyl that they put in these pills, that they put in your weed, that they put in your drug of choice, all of you hippies out there that love to smoke and get high on whatever it is, it only takes 3 granules the size of a mustard seed to kill you. That's all it takes of this stuff.
Well, not exactly. It depends on the person, but it's a very small amount. I know the picture you're talking about, but it's not. That's like the point is it's a very small amount. But I think everybody knows that by
picture
now.
that I'm trying to paint, is that just because you think that you can trust whomever you're getting your stuff from, understand that they have a supplier as well, and that they have no idea what's been put in there because of how small the amount is. So I do not approve of doing drugs. But if you are going to do it, particularly if you're doing weed, grow your own. That's all I'm saying. I don't know if you would say the same thing, but that's what I'm saying. It's better to be safe.
I would say if you're going to do any of the harder stuff, you need to test it first. Although I'm definitely not recommending anyone do that, but it might save your life if you test it before you. I'm not advocating for drug use either. I think it's a very bad idea, but get a test kit at least. Don't die. Don't be another one. Like I've said before, now the number is 3 people that I have known that have died in the last like 2-3 months from fentanyl. As far as I know for sure 2 of them. Well, this last one, I'm making an assumption, but it's a safe assumption. Yeah, RIP. I'm not going to say any names on here, obviously, but we should probably stop saying people's names also when we talk about.
We probably should, and unless they want to come on the podcast, But back on to some more of this conspiracy stuff, because I think it's fun, and we get to have fun with this.
Well, we need to wrap it up pretty quick here.
Yeah, we're coming on 2 hours. We got 10 minutes.
It's almost 9 o'clock anyway.
So I look around and I'm seeing a whole bunch of this stuff here. one of the things, getting back to the Alex Jones thing, because of course, he's been in the news lately, with his trial and case and stuff like that, which I don't know anything about the trial or case. However, I do know that the bar that they have set for him has made our legal justice system so much lower than it is. When that you can call a defamation case. Doesn't make any sense to me. However, we're not here to talk about that. A conversation for a different time. But I do like to say, when I talk to some of these people who have, some far bonkers ideas, particularly flat earthers. Flat earthers are the most interesting people. They love to talk about quantum theory and string theory, and they don't really know what they're talking about. But you know what the worst conversation to have is a flat earther that also believes that the earth is hollow. Those are the ones that are the most interesting and the ones that make you lose your mind when you're talking.
How the hell does that work?
Well,
How's it hollow and flat?
apparently it works like this. The earth is a cube. It's not just flat. It's like a piece of paper, but it's cubed. So it has actual dimension. And on the earth's on the f- there are four different axes on the earth. They don't exist on the axis that you would see on a graph, but they exist in different places on the earth. And there's four of them, and these holes are on the earth that leads you into portals inside the earth itself, where all of the ancient alien wizardry is all that stuff. They all exist in this place. I think it's like Aetherium or something like that, where they all exist in this world inside the world. So if you watched Godzilla, uh King of the Monsters, the movie that they came out with, the 2016 movie, I think it was, when he fights against Ghidorah up in the legendary pictures. When Godzilla fights Ghidorah, he gets shot with the oxygen destroyer, and he goes underwater, and they go up inside there to drop a nuke on him to recharge him. Well, that is the hollow earth that these people subscribe through. When Godzilla went inside the water, underneath there, inside there is the hollow earth where all the ancient people live, and that's what these people believe. And so the flat earthers who believe in hollow earth believe that there are four portals, and that one of these portals is in Minnesota. I think it's in Minnesota or Michigan, where Hell's Gate is, which is a gaping hole in the earth that seemingly has no bottom. And they believe that that's just a portal, and if you jumped in there, you would wind up, you wouldn't fall for eternity, you'd fall for a certain distance and then be teleported into the hollow earth.
I just don't understand why people would choose to believe something like that. There's just so many steps and leaps you have to take to get your thinking into who would benefit from hiding all this stuff, especially the flat earth. Why is that beneficial? Why would they make up? You know how many people have to be lying?
You know what the dumbest theory is for flat earthers? Is that they explain that the earth is flat because nobody ever flies from California to Hawaii to Japan. It's always the opposite direction. They fly, and they touch down in a certain spot. If they want to go to Japan, rather than flying from California to Japan, they fly from California to New York to Europe to Japan, rather than flying across the Pacific Ocean to
Don't
Japan.
think that's true.
No, these are some of the things that they've showed me. They're like, oh, they have these flight paths, and all the airplanes go through these flight paths, and that's how they wind up there. So because they don't go across the Pacific Ocean very often at all, then the Earth has to be flat because they aren't going in this direction. They're always following the same path. When all you have to do to debunk that is say it's called air highways, air traffic
Yeah, but
control.
look,
This is how they regulate that. And also, why would you go across the Pacific Ocean when there's nothing to land on if you run out of gas?
there's plenty of flight paths across the Pacific, though. So I don't see where these people are, like, that's crazy. All over the Pacific. Anyway, I just think that you have to do so much mental gymnastics to think that way. It's just,
What do you
it's
think about the string theory people? You know what they believe, right?
the string theory people, the scientists.
No, the people who believe in it. Like, for example, I have friends of mine that believe in the string theory. And they believe that if you turn the lights off, and if you never saw what the inside of your home looked like, and you entered it in the dark, nothing in there will exist because it didn't
Okay, well,
metaphysical.
that's not string theory.
It didn't metaphysical physical I'm messing up the word metaphysicalize or something. It didn't formulate in front of you because you never got the chance to envision it, so the energy doesn't get a chance to reproduce itself when you enter into the space.
Okay, well, that's people who take quantum mechanics to a level that's just not scientific at all. String theory has nothing to do with that. String theory is the idea that all subatomic particles, all quanta, are made up of tiny vibrating strings, vibrating at different frequencies to create different particles. I don't know who you're talking about. That Schrodinger's cat was a thought experiment. It wasn't meant to be taken seriously. The cat that's both dead and alive.
I think that's one of the biggest problems that we see with a lot of these people that believe in these conspiracy theories is they forget the theory portion of it. Most of these cannot even be tested, yet alone replicated.
Well, I mean, anything in science is not good. There's no such thing as proof in science. That's math. There's only working theories. But
Well,
that's
when you have something that's proven, it becomes a scientific law. I mean, you know that the law
well,
of
that's
gravity.
not the same. That's not the same as a theory, or a proof is a mathematical thing. It's a fact. Okay, there are certain laws, but they're not constant at every point in the universe, though, and except the speed of light that we know of. There are places where the laws of physics break down, such as in the quantum realm. They don't work. That's why we have separate theories for relativity, which is for large objects, and quantum theory, which is for the subatomic world. They operate on two completely different planes. String theory was meant to be a theory of everything that united quantum theory and relativity. But so far, it hasn't worked. It's been the best working theory so far.
And it's with so much of the other stuff as well. I don't want to get into a creationist versus evolution debate, but it's also the same thing there in the world of science. It's the best thing we've got so far, though there is quite literally no way of being able to ever test it for accuracy.
Well, I don't think we have time to open that can of worms.
we don't. We could say that for next week's casual Saturdays or conspiracy Saturdays or whatever we want to call it. I think casual Saturdays sounds better. What do you think? Casual Saturdays or conspiracy Saturdays?
Well, if we call it casual, then we can do more than just conspiracies.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Casual Saturdays, so we can just come in here and just open up our brains and let the rainbows pour out. Rainbows of thought, not rainbows of
Rainbows.
pride.
Uh,
Or to use a SpongeBob analogy, imagination.
SpongeBob, dude.
SpongeBob is gay.
Yeah, he is.
He wasn't gay when we were growing up, but he became gay after the SpongeBob movie, I believe. When Patrick is running around in spider net socks and his ass cheeks are hanging out with a flag between them, that's when you know you've turned a wholesome children's cartoon into gay fetishes.
Shark jumpers. Yeah.
The hell is a shark?
Oh, whenever you say something has jumped the shark, that means that it has crossed the line into the point of irrelevancy. Jumping the shark.
I haven't heard of that one before. It must be a white people saying.
No, it's not. It's just an old saying. It's an old television saying. I don't remember what TV show it
It was
was.
a white person TV show. You know it.
But I'm not going to address that seriously.
Oh, come on, your white privilege is showing.
Now, so white people actually don't have one type of show that they watch, unlike black people. BET,
Hey,
Bounce.
nothing
I mean,
on
come
BET
on.
is nothing on BET is worth watching. Bounce, on
I
the other
know,
hand,
I know it's all
is worth
garbage,
watching.
dude. But
Bounce is worth
everybody,
watching.
everybody in jail loves that crap, dude.
Well, that's why they're in jail. Because they watch
Hate it.
crap. They consume crap. When you consume crap, you become crap. You know, BET used to be good when Robert Johnson was the head of it, and it was a competition to MTV.
Mhm.
But the problem with BET is that they didn't have Beavis and Butthead like MTV had. Beavis and Butthead at MTV. BET didn't have any of that.
See, the weird thing about it is MTV is not a white person channel. It's just a music channel. BET meant to be, it's like setting up a false dichotomy. There's no white entertainment television. All there is CMT, country music television. And all white people don't like that stuff. I don't like it. I don't know what kind of point I'm trying to make here, but
Well, country music is depressing. Yeah,
I mean,
most of it is.
there
Most
are
of
a
it
few
is.
country songs that I like, but overall the genre is, I don't really care for it.
Like, why is all country music about getting over a breakup?
A lot of it is, I don't know,
It's
not
all
all of it.
like like you can take 95% of all Taylor Swift songs and put it in the garbage
Well,
because it's
Taylor
all
Swift
about
is
people
not a
hooking up.
country artist. She used to be, but she's not anymore. She's a pop
Well,
artist now.
and she
Her
doesn't sound
old
like a
stuff
pop
is
artist
country.
to me.
Her,
I
because I
guess
guess
the
you haven't
new
heard any of the new stuff. She
no, I
hasn't
don't
done
listen to
country since, she hasn't
I
done
don't listen to
country
new
since like,
music, so I guess I might be wrong. I don't listen to new music.
you don't know any music.
I don't listen to
Huh.
any of the crap that comes out early
See, when you make a
nowadays.
statement like that, what you're basically saying is that you do. I don't listen to radio either. I'm just familiar with a lot of this stuff.
No, I just say you listen to radio. I just said that everything that's modern is crap.
That's most of it, but not all of it. But the point, anyway, is Taylor Swift hasn't done country music since we were like in high school.
Yeah, like that's so far long
I'm
ago.
I'm not a fan. I don't care for Taylor Swift, but I just know it because I'm a music fan overall.
I like Mariah Carey though, but only on her Christmas albums.
I don't like Mariah Carey at
Because
all.
I love Christmas music.
I don't like it. I'm irritated by it now.
Christmas music. The only time I turn my radio on is when Christmas season starts. And you know, when we were in high school, Christmas season on the radio used to start right now on 93.7. No, not 93. Yeah, 93.7. Christmas music used to start right now on the Delilah show. She would play Christmas music starting right now. Now you have to wait until after Thanksgiving or sometimes even the start of December to get good Christmas music. What's wrong with the world today when you can't get Christmas music in
It's called the
August?
internet. Stream it, dude.
No, but see, I like to turn on the radio. It's the only time of the year that I turn the radio on, and I don't turn it off until March when Christmas music stopped playing.
I can't relate.
You
Listen to it whenever you want by looking it up.
you Antichrist. You don't love Christians. You don't love Christmas.
I've heard all the songs so many times. There's nothing else to say about this.
Doesn't it make you get a warm feeling? Do you like to like me when Christmas time comes around and really any holiday comes around? I like to get in front of the TV, turn on WLOX channel 13 and watch Peanuts, the Charlie Brown specials.
No.
And I like to watch the the old stop motion animations of the old Rudolph cartoons and the
Yeah, no, I don't watch that stuff.
and the for oh,
Not since I have watched it since I was a kid.
I watch it every year. You are anti-American. That's what you are. The founders are rolling over in their grave right now because you don't like stop motion Rudolph.
They were the biggest fans.
Yes, they were.
Yeah, George Washington, he loved Peanuts, dude. He probably
Here I
invented
am.
Peanuts.
Here I am comparing you and myself to Alexander Hamilton and Madison and the writings of the ministry's constitution, and you don't even like Rudolph? Stop animation. Oh, speaking of Peanuts, did you see the new Peanuts movie?
No.
It was a 3D movie. It's a movie, and Charlie Brown, he gets a girlfriend.
Come on now. You're dragging this out.
Yeah, I am dragging it out. Anywho, we have tomorrow night. We will be going over the Fellows Papers numbers, what,
11 through
through
15.
15? 11 through 15? Yeah. So we're going over 11 through 15. You know what? That's only 4. Shouldn't it be 11 through 16?
11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm not thinking right. I'm counting 10 as the 5th one. All right. Yeah, but so we're going over the next 5 numbers of the Federalist Papers. And I think these are going to be pretty interesting and relevant to today's times. Have you actually had a chance to go over most of them?
Yeah, I've read all of them except the last one. But I do think that the last one, 15, is the beginning of a whole series that's going to take up like the whole next episode. The topic is the same topic for like 16, 17, 18, 19 or something like that. Anyway, but I've read the first 4.
I think it's going to be really interesting. And you know what? With our review of the Federalist Papers, it makes crushing leftists much easier, because now all I have to do is tell them, when they say that, oh, this is what the founders envisioned the country, go read the Federalist Papers, see what they actually thought. It's completely
Find out
wrong.
that the problems we have today are some of the same problems that were going on back
Yes.
then, trying to
Same problems
confuse.
that they talked about and that they wrote about, that none of these people who seem to think that we have all these problems will read, which is why we have to do it for them. So stay
That's fine.
tuned. Stick with us tomorrow night, same time, 7 o'clock. Also tomorrow morning, we're doing Growing Christ with Jay, with or without him. I let him know that if he doesn't show up, he will be kicked off of the show tomorrow. And Rhett, you've often said that you needed to start joining us on the Christian show. Show up if you can, and we'll
I'm
have a
going to
good
be
time.
at church.
No, you won't be at church the entire time, because I'll be at church too. I'll probably get started like somewhere around, I don't know, maybe 1 o'clock,
Okay, then.
which I guess isn't morning, it's afternoon.
Yeah.
So tomorrow afternoon, Growing Christ with Jay. Tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock, we'll be doing the Federalist Papers, all streamed here. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, follow us on everywhere else that you can find us. The Story of America with Payson Williams, The Story of America PW, and we are out of here.